All right, folks, it's time for another edition of World Edition, and we'll be talking about a lot of things going on in the world and around the world and seeing what folks' reactions are to a number of these stories. And of course, we'll be joined later by members of the panel. And I think we have a guest coming tomorrow and everything like that. But there is a report that Catholicism thrives in Africa, but Pope Cameroon visit is highlighting a divide in that area as well. So the Pope in Cameroon live, criticized by Trump, Leo to talk peace and meet some of the world's oldest folks and everything along those lines. So definitely we'll be seeing things in that space. He's going to be meeting with the world's, I think it's the oldest ruler and everything like that. So the world's oldest ruler he'll be meeting with when he's visiting Cameroon and everything like that. Pope in Algeria said God's heart is torn apart by wars, violence, injustice, and lies. And definitely, some people are saying that Pope Leo's feud with Trump is overshadowing his spiritual homecoming and all along those lines. So I think that's the spiritual homecoming that had been existing and everything like that with folks in that way. So Pope Leo the 14th came to North Africa to honor his spiritual forefather, Saint Augustine, who preached that war was only justified to protect the innocent. So perhaps it's fitting the visit has been overshadowed by his escalating feud with President Donald Trump over the first American pontiff's criticism of the war with Iran and everything like that. So that's definitely something that folks are talking about as well. So definitely there's a lot going on in the world. Rubio launches direct negotiations between Israel and Lebanon. So Rubio hosts Israel and Lebanon for a rare meeting shadowed by the U.S.-Iran war. Hezbollah says Lebanon's talk with Israel widen a national rift. So Israel and Lebanese talks more symbolic than substantive is what a former state official or State Department official is saying. U.S. military is maintaining blockade on Iranian ports as peace talks are set to begin and all along those lines. So we'll see how these blockades work and everything like that. U.S. and Iran seek further talks as Hormuz standoff intensifies. So definitely Trump is teasing more talks. Israel and Lebanon, like I said earlier, are meeting in the U.S. and we'll be seeing how this all plays out as well. Hungary's election winner, Magyar, to meet the president and calls on him to resign. So, how Pete Magyar defeated Viktor Orban, a former ally in Hungary's election, is what the New York Times is talking about, and all in that way. So, definitely lots going on in the world, including some countries that are possibly having a change in leadership, and all in that way. So, there's a lot going on in the world, and of course, we're always glad to be talking about it here on the network. Hungary's voters shunned Orban, but it may be too early to celebrate the end of his regime and everything like that. So Trump and Putin just lost their poster boy in Europe, and some folks are asking what's new for Hungary and everything in that space. Four killed in a second Turkish school shooting in 2 days. So there have been another shooting in Turkey in a school shooting, and this is the second one in 2 days. At least four killed and 20 wounded in Turkey's second school shooting within that time frame. So eighth grade students kills four, wounds 20 in that second shooting. So definitely this notion of gun control is something that other countries are dealing with as well. Sudan enters a fourth year of war as officials lament an abandoned crisis. UN officials lament an abandoned crisis in Sudan. 3 years of messages at once, a chronicle of Sudan's war pours in and all along those lines. So Hungary, bribery, and ruin. Darfur, after 3 years of civil war. So this is definitely a country that's been in the middle of war for a number of years. Dodging bombs and drones, this postman in Ukraine still delivers. So that's an article in the New York Times where there is a postman that's not going to let the war stop him from getting the mail to his customers and everything like that. So Russia offers China energy lifeline as the Iran war strangles global supply. China's G meets Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov in Beijing. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. China Russia ties are precious in the current international context, is what Xi Jinping is saying. And Russia's Lavrov visits China as U.S. pressures Iran with Hormuz blockade. Russia ready to help China with energy ahead of Putin's visit, is what the foreign minister is saying in that particular case. And in Cameroon, separatists announced pause of hostilities for the Pope's visit. So hopefully that is maintaining, because that was a story from yesterday. And Ukraine is slowing Russia down and clawing back ground in key areas, war experts say. Here's how it's finding fresh wind. So Ukraine retakes 50 square kilometers of territory in March, according to what an army chief said in that particular area and all along those lines. So definitely looks like a lot's going on positively in that space as Ukraine forces regain control of nearly 50 kilometers in March. And Japan to join the largest Balikatan war games with 1,400 troops and Type 88 missiles. So Philippines, the U.S. military drill underscores Washington's defense commitment, and Japan to deploy 1,400 troops in this particular case. So U.S. forces will be joining those combat drills in Philippines to show commitment into Asia. And at least 250 people are missing, including Rohingya and Bangladeshis, after a boat sinks in the Andaman Sea. So 250 are missing as the boat carrying Rohingya and Bangladeshi migrants sink in the Indian Ocean and everything like that. And Poland and Israel mark Holocaust Remembrance Day in photos. Definitely echoes the dark times, is what the Times of Israel saying. Recent deadly anti-Semitism features heavily at the March remembrances and everything like that. So thousands gather in Krakow to honor Holocaust survivors at the March of the Living. And Hezbollah terrorists is caught off guard as IDF troops encircle enemy in Bent Jabal. So 3 Hezbollah operatives surrendered to IDF troops in Bent Jabal, says the military, and all along those lines. And Israel hasn't attacked Beirut since Wednesday amid U.S. Pressures and everything like that. So definitely we'll be hearing about how this is going. And Spain has strengthened ties with China as Sanchez backs Beijing's Middle East role. So the Spanish premier is urging China to take a bigger role in multipolar order. And Spain also approves a plan to give around 500,000 undocumented migrants legal status. So Spain finalizes amnesty measures for potentially hundreds of thousands. And if Nick joins us, we'll find out some of his thoughts about this as well. An American YouTuber, Johnny Somali, sentenced to jail in South Korea over comfort woman statue stunt. So apparently South Korea has jailed the American YouTuber for a public nuisance and everything like that. And definitely we'll be seeing more about the impact of social media and how other countries are handling their social media folks. And Germany to maintain Ukraine aid despite political headwinds and everything like that. And war is spurs EU plans for electricity tax cuts. Faster shift from fossil fuels is what one draft is showing. Going to bring Rick in, see what he's got on his mind as I get ready to talk about some world U.S. stuff as well. New federal Medicaid rules require 1 month of work. Some states are demanding more. So there's a crisis in the making. Nebraska races to impose work requirements on the Medicaid, and that was reported in Politico. And of course, as we've talked about before, those representatives Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzalez have formally submitted their resignation from Congress. And hedge funds think they can make a killing on Trump tariff refunds. And I know we've got some people even in this network that have been used in hedge funds, but U.S. set to launch tariff refund system on April 20th. So we'll see if some people make some money using this hedge fund that's going to come out of some of the tariff situation.
So Trump is sending another 10,000 troops to the Mideast, raising the number of troops there to 60,000.
Wow.
Normally they're about 40,000. So, we have people there under normal circumstances, but now we're sending more and more.
We're sending even more of them over there and everything like that. And that's just scary. It looks like you are just doing all kinds of stuff, because we had another shooting in Turkey. I think this was the second school shooting. And then apparently the news yesterday, a Texas teen's death was put in renewed spotlight on energy drink concerns for young people. So apparently a lot of young people are getting caught up in the fad of energy drinks and everything like that. And sometimes these energy drinks might not be all that great, because there's even some reports that saying that energy drinks can cause an enlarged heart in some cases. So I didn't get a chance to ask Dr. Patmos about that, but maybe we'll bring that up on a future edition and everything along those lines. But also looks like Americans are growing a bit friendlier toward China. So I know that Nick is a big fan of China and has the Chinese Facebook groups that he monitors and everything like that. But as Trump attacks friends and foes, Americans apparently are changing their minds, as is China. About China, as is Trump. So Americans' view of China improve ahead of the Trump G summit. So maybe we're getting a better view of what China is like and everything like that. So what's your thoughts around this notion of China being a friend versus an enemy?
Well, as the U.S. pulls back and kind of just engages in self-imposed chaos, China is trying to be the world's friend. We talk about China has this Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah.
If you don't know what that is, China wants to establish easy trade with the rest of the world. China wants to be the world's manufacturer. Belt stands for sea lanes, sea routes, but China wants to establish easy routes to transport its goods to the rest of the world. And you can see what happens when you've got a screwed up sea route with the Strait of Hormuz. So China is, making nice with the rest of the world to make sure that it can easily ship to the rest of the world. And then the road initiative is the same thing, where China wants to make sure that it can transport stuff to the rest of Asia and Europe over land. And if that means giving foreign aid to countries to improve their transportation systems, their roads, China's doing it. So, yeah, I could see that China is an economically expanding country with more than 150 manufacturing cities with populations each of more than 1 million people, and like eight super cities with populations of more than 10 million people. And so, my wife had a little product and she had it manufactured in China. People turn to China for manufacturing. Now, China will steal your stuff. China tried to steal my wife's product and make it available, a knockoff product to manufacturers. But yeah, China is a powerhouse, and people turn to them, given the chaos here. We're losing the world's smart people. We have a brain drain to other countries because we're not that friendly to foreign people right now. So a smart, talented person who would have come to the U.S. to get educated and then build a business 20 years ago is now looking to other countries.
Well, they're totally looking to other countries. Just by the way, what was your wife's project and everything like that?
It was called All Betters. So the deal is that my wife noticed that cold packs that you might use to treat a bruise or a scrape, they weren't kid friendly. They were ugly, and she thought she thought, all right, you take the cold pack, make it fun for kids to use, because often when a kid falls down, they start crying. That paying attention to the kid is more than half the treatment. And right. So she had a little heart-shaped cold pack filled with sparkles that came with a set of stickers. You could personalize the cold pack, and it was a decent product. We had some bad luck distributing it, but yeah, she made it in China, and then she started seeing knockoff products, and you can see them today. Not every kid-friendly cold pack is a ripoff of my wife. Other people have the same idea, but some of those cold packs, they probably got the idea from my wife.
Could have got it from your wife, and she could have made some big money and everything like that. Hey, Nick, I saw that the state above me and everything like that being Virginia has done some things around gun laws and everything like that. So I just wanted your take as to whether we can ever have effective gun laws. So today they're saying the changes mark one of the most significant overhauls of Virginia's firearm laws in years, touching on how guns are sold, stored, and carried across the Commonwealth and everything like that. So definitely looks like there's some rules that'll be going on in that space. And I was just wondering your notion as to whether gun control is legitimate and whether we should have gun control.
Oh, obviously the answer is yes, but the United States isn't going to have it anytime soon. There's too many Second Amendment people, too many people live in rural communities who are afraid, and because of their fear of the British taking over, the Muslims coming in taking over, you're not going to see it in our lifetime. So if you want to live in a safe country, you need to leave the United States, go to places like Australia or even Spain. US
well, let me just really quickly, I didn't want to get to Spain, but
Yeah.
apparently this amendment is got some background check processes that are in place. It's also raising the minimum age to purchase handguns and certain semi-automatic firearms from 18 to 21, with exceptions for individuals in law enforcement or military and everything like that. So an emergency clause in the amendment allows the background check provision to take effect immediately upon legislative approval. So it looks like there's a lot of stuff to do with background checks, as well as some of the stuff around local gun buyback programs and things along those lines. So it definitely looks like there's expanded restrictions that are out there.
You're not going to go anywhere with crime in the U.S. until you repeal the Second Amendment. And it's not going to happen. So the only way you can repeal the Second Amendment is leave the United States. It's real simple. And in Spain, they have very strict, where I live, there's very strict gun control laws. And the murder rate is like 1/6 of the United States, not even close.
1/10, about 1/10.
There we go. And same with Australia. So why live in an uncivilized?
But you're about to get a bunch of neighbors. I don't know if you heard that story that I mentioned earlier before you came on. I think it might have even been before Rick was on as well. But I think Rick was here already. But apparently Spain is about to get multi-thousands of immigrants that are coming over, because y'all have just passed the new law that they're going to allow a lot of immigrants to come over and everything like that. So I know that sometimes
they always have, but a lot of them are people that are Spanish descent from Latin American countries. But at the same time, people have to be smart about immigration, and hopefully Spain will be smart about who's immigrating and who's not into the country. But again, I have very little say in that stuff, so all I can do is be a bystander. If things work out, fine. If not, I leave. Real simple.
They just approved the plan to give around 500,000 undocumented migrants legal status, so it is like 500,000 and everything like that.
I have a law question for Nick, because you mentioned I mentioned my wife's product, and what really killed her business was uncontrolled lawyering. So my wife would pitch her product to manufacture, to distribute. And they say, "Yeah, we love your product. Let's do a deal." And my wife had a lawyer on retainer, and she just said to the lawyer, "Go ahead and write up the deal." Nick, you can talk about this, because what happened to us was, like, if you let lawyers lawyer, they will just keep on lawyering. And eventually my wife quit opening the letters from the bills, and she ran up, the lawyers ran up $100,000 legal bill, and like none of these deals got made. So can you talk about
legal work is pretty expensive. I mean, it's not unusual. I think we spent that last year in our company, about $100,000. And I just tell people that if you're going to be in business, you're going to have to reserve a certain amount for legal fees and for litigation, et cetera. And it's a bigger amount than people want to hear about. The laws of just, we keep talking about how expensive the medical profession is in the United States, 20% of the GDP. I'm not sure, maybe Rick, you can do some research. How much do lawyers, percentage of the GDP go to law firms and the legal profession? I mean, we have a very expensive legal profession, but if you look at it from an outcome-based, what you spend on it may not be worth it. This is the reason I like David Walker.
We found out you can't let lawyers run free, right?
Oh yeah, of course. But of course, they would say. But how much of our GDP is spent on legal work? I call it
the legal services sector accounts for roughly 1.3 to 2.1% of the U.S. GDP.
Okay, all right. So it's not super like it is medicine. You know, it's
But
not 20.
we spent 530 billion on lawyers in 2022.
530 billion. Well, that's like
Oh, that includes legal awards. If your lawyer gets,
no, it really includes legal awards. I'm wondering how big that is relative to the GDP of certain countries. Okay, that would be a very, very curious.
And everything like that. I got another legal question for you because I've heard people talk about it and everything like that. But what exactly is the 80-20 rule for lawyers and everything like that? Because when I looked up lawyers, they bring up this 80-20 rule, and I'm going like, what exactly is this? So you're a lawyer. What is the 80-20 rule?
Well, it's the 80-20 rule was basically used a lot in all sorts of different metrics. Like 80% of your business will come from 20% of your clients. Okay. It's just one of these, it's kind of a made up demographic. However, even if you have a sales force like we do, 80% of our sales will come from 20% of our sales force. The bottom 80% only produce 20%. It's just a weird it's just a weird metric that seems to exist in a lot of different places.
It's a rule of thumb. There's a name for it. It's called the Pareto principle. And it can apply to good things like, the 20%, the 20% of your employees who are the best employees might do 80% of the work. If you're, I don't know, working in a bar, the 20% worst customers might cause 80% of the problems.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. It's just a weird rule of thumb. If it's 500 billion, it would exceed the entire GDP of Bangladesh or the entire GDP of the Philippines. So the legal fees alone.
Yeah, legal fees alone, because that's a lot of money, because that's trillions of dollars and everything like that.
What you want to do is marry a lawyer. Then you have an in-house lawyer who will handle all your stuff on the house.
Well, sort of. It still takes time. I mean, that's one of the real problems. That's the reason they have time billing. It's it is what it is.
Speaking of time billing and everything like that, Nick, I've heard of this other term that is out there, and apparently I'm thinking you might have worked for some of these folks and everything like that, but there's something called the Magic Circles, which I guess is the top law firms. It includes A&O, Shearman, Clifford Chance, Freshfields, Linkletters, and Slaughter and May. So I was wondering if you ever did any work with any of these folks.
Never heard of any of those, but it looks like Trump is finally getting a decent lawyer in from Sullivan and Cromwell onto his team for the first time. Sullivan and Cromwell is one of the top law firms in the United States. The Donald has a very unique knack of basically hiring from the bottom of the barrel. And he does that. We were just on our show with RFK. Right. Not only is RFK not a doctor, he's not even qualified to be head of health and human resources. So talk about the bottom of the barrel. You might as well go into a diner and find a trucker and send him in and say, look, he's head of health and human resources now. But even when he picks the lawyers to be like in the AG's office, the guy just doesn't have the knack for picking the best and the brightest. I don't know, as an executive in a major company, he would just never cut it. So how did Donald get to be the head of his company? Real simple. He inherited it. And that's probably the only way he would be the head of any major company in the world, is to inherit it, because he doesn't have the skill set to do it. Now, but here's the sad thing. Isn't the sad thing? Donald is who he is, and he is the president, so we do have to respect him for that. But the sad thing isn't him; it's the American public that voted for him. You got to go like, what's wrong with you guys? I mean, and that's the best the Republican Party can do. And then you look at the Democrats; that's the best you can do on the Democratic side. So the real problem is the American political system, and I don't know how you solve that. And it seems like we have a very, I hate to say it, Rick, we live in the United States. You live in a very stupid country. I mean, it's just,
Right. So
mind-boggling for anybody who's above average. I mean, it's just
in the previous hour, We were talking about on the medical show, talking about RFK Jr. has a podcast where a new podcast where he's
going to have a podcast. Yes.
Yeah, he's going to spread nonsense. And I did a little bit of research based on my suspicions about what things used to be like. And it used to be when we were kids, both political parties treated voters as not as well. They didn't appeal to idiocy as much as they do now. For instance, college educated voters in the 60s, the 70s, even the 80s, they voted primarily majority Republican.
Right.
Now educated people vote Dems. The people without college, they're Trump's white people, didn't go to college, are Trump's strongest demographic. Starting in the 70s, the Republicans started trying to round up dumb people because they're easier to manipulate.
Yes, because of breaking news and everything like that, because it involves the Donald and everything like that. But apparently, Trump is saying he'll fire Powell next month if he stays in his role at the Fed. So President Donald Trump says he will fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell if he does not step aside when his term at the helm of the central bank expires next month.
Well, Trump has a distrust of expertise. Trump will hire lawyers who kiss his ass. He'll hire super pretty ladies. Trump has had some of the most attractive but incompetent lawyers I
mean, like I said, his hiring practices are pretty poor. Usually in a major company, if you're going to be successful, and frankly, any company, you have to hire people better than yourself and really good at their jobs. But I don't think that's the requirement of this administration or his particular administration. It looks like the requirement is how much do you suck up? And then that's the leading way. Now, that's very Machiavellian. It may not be a bad way to keep your political position, okay, but is it any way to run a country? And the answer is no. I don't see the Republicans being in November. I think they're going to lose the House. The question is lose the Senate. I'd like to see what the latest stats are that Rick. If they lose the House and Senate and they lose substantially, then you're not going to see Donald around next year.
So it's tough for them
because I don't think they can get him out of office. It'll just be a lame duck and everything like that. But go ahead.
It's tough for them to win the Senate because right now the Senate is 47-53 Republican, and they have a shot at getting to 50-50. But they still lose because in a 50-50 Senate, the VP, who's J.D. Vance, steps in to break ties. That's what Kamala Harris broke more ties than any other VP in history, I think, because under Biden, the Senate was 50-50.
But see, even if the Democrats get in, all will become is a more dysfunctional leadership group, because then you're going to have a lot of animosity between the Congress and the presidency. So where you have right now, you have a dysfunctional.
It's already the most dysfunctional. It's already the most dysfunctional in history. That the job of the legislative branch is to pass legislation, and they've passed less legislation in the past 2 terms of Congress than any Congress in the past 150 years.
Yeah.
They're not doing
and it could be because they don't believe in legislation, I guess. I don't know. They don't believe in laws or creating laws or fixing problems using the law. I don't know what the problem is. It could be just a lack of leadership, like what David Walker says. It's laggardship, not leadership.
Well, also because it's evenly divided. But and people will say, well, good, we don't want more laws. But the deal is that, like, if you have a natural disaster, FEMA has, FEMA is pretty screwed up right now, but FEMA has it's supposed to have funds where it can immediately step in and help people who've been wiped out by floods, for instance. But
Right.
to get longer term help to the tens of thousands of people who might be affected by a natural disaster, you need to pass legislation. And even that is difficult to get through Congress right now.
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing I think David Walker brings out quite well that what's happening in the U.S. is the fiscal irresponsibility that has been going on for decades. In other words, it's not like it's just a Trump problem. We know Trump would not be the solution because of the way he managed his casinos and his own corporate debt issues. But if you look at what happens with the United States sitting around 39 trillion in debt, and then the plan is to spend more money and increase the debt, you do have to be careful. You can't just send the United States into a tailspin by not keeping government funds available, but you have to somewhere get smart about this. But here's what looks like it's going to happen and we've been saying this for years. It'll be years before it happens. You guys don't have to worry about it. Social Security cuts 24% in the year 2033. So everybody on Social Security can look forward to a cut. Medicare goes bankrupt about the same time. And what will happen is, and Trump has already thrown up the flagpole, he says the federal government's not going to supply Medicare anymore. You got to go to the states. Well, this is going to create a very interesting situation for those who live into the next decade, because you're going to see Social Security cut, Medicare eliminated, and the national debt continue to climb. Part of it also deals with the tax situation that exists. Remember, the taxes were reduced for the upper percentage. And during the Eisenhower administration, they actually increased the taxes. So we don't have guys like Elon Musk running around. We don't have Michael Jordan pocketing $100 million a year from Nike. Instead, what happened, they had a 90% income tax if you're making over $1 million. And the reason they did it is the US was heavily in debt due to World War II. So they could actually balance the budget. I don't believe you're going to see any near fiscal responsibility by the United States, because those two words are bad words in the American public. But that means you're going to see a lot of problems take place in the next decade. I don't know.
I have a Social Security question for you. So I'm in that pipeline. I'm going to be 66 next month. And you can start taking Social Security at 62, or
Correct.
You can wait. The longer you wait until 70, the more you get per month. So if I
increase about 8%.
So if I took it right now, I could get $2,800 a month. But if I wait till I'm 70, I get $3,800 a month. But you're saying that in 2033, everybody's going to get hit with a cut because so should I start taking the payments now so I get a few more years of?
JD says just depends. Of course, see, one of the problems with Social Security is that when you die, your Social Security payments end. Plop. So if you live a long time, it's better to wait. If you don't, it isn't. But then you have another factor. When Social Security cuts the benefits, then you missed 4 years where you could be receiving full benefits. Right. So it's really a hard question to answer. It depends on a lot of factors. Your longevity and your trust in them correcting the Social Security system. Now, in my particular case, I didn't trust my longevity because my father died early of a heart disease, and I didn't trust the U.S. system because I spend too much time with David Walker, and I know that Social Security trust funds around my. So I took it at 66. I mean, but it's a gamble. My business partner waited till 70, and so he's taking it this year. And he might win the bet. He may not. It's a bet. Who knows? But if I had to do it again, I'd still do the same.
Better than the gamble that we all take and everything like that. Hey, Nick, I got another question for you and everything like that, because as you know, my nephews are going to college, and they're actually, it looks like they might be going to UNCG, which has got a good in-state tuition. It's like $70,593. Right. Out-of-state tuition is like $23,339 and everything like that. But I was looking at some of the more expensive ones, like Wake Forest University is $79,886 plus, and the Duke University around the corner from me is $79,860 plus, and Davidson is $75,865 plus. So I'm just wondering, are we going to see in North Carolina and maybe even in other states $100,000 tuitions and everything like that, because
Eventually.
these are very high. They're already in the 75,
yeah.
79, almost 80,000 range. So are we going to be seeing
Yeah.
a case where in the next
Yeah.
few years, some college kids will be spending $100,000?
No question. I went to University of Miami. The tuition when I went there was something like 2,500 a semester, so it's like $5,000 a year.
Right.
Today, it's 70,000 a year to go to the U.
That's a state university, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Nick is frozen. Nick would tell you when Nick unfreezes, he'll tell you, take a look.
I'm unfreezing.
All right.
Okay.
So take a look at foreign colleges. Like if you
that's the other thing. That's really weird, but you're right. If you go to school overseas, I went to Oxford. I went to St. Edmund's Hall, Oxford University, back part of my law degree. I was at the University of Miami, and I went to my parents. I did the analysis. I said it's cheaper for me to go to Oxford than it is to the University of Miami. So I applied to Oxford, got accepted, and did my summer programs at Oxford University Law and transferred it over to the University of Miami so I could graduate. Why? Because Oxford is a public school, seriously, and their tuition was next to nothing.
Hey, Nick, I'm glad that I'm not going to Marquette right now and everything, because I just looked at my alma mater and everything. Undergraduate tuition at Marquette was set to raise into the 2026-27 academic year 3.5% to approximately, it's still much cheaper than Duke, $53,890. Yeah. Total estimated annual costs, including housing and food, range from roughly $69,470 to $73,880 for the 2025-2026 academic year. Tuition $52,070 with a tuition for online programs, because you can also do online at $22,800 and everything like that. And they do have a decent law school, so apparently on-campus housing was approximately $89,786 total. But their law school, because I just saw that 2025-2026 tuition was $2,055 per credit hour. So that's per credit hour.
Yeah, right. No, it's to call it. See, the thing is, if you have deep pockets, this doesn't matter to you. In other words, and remember, the United States is skewed like a J curve. I know Totobi thinks it's K, it's J. In other words, as you move up that 1%, you have more and more unlimited funds there. I mean, so it doesn't make a difference to them. So I work with a lot of clients, Mark, it doesn't make a difference. They spend $100,000, $200,000 a year for tuition. But for the vast majority of Americans, they should not go to private schools. They're just too expensive. And I tried to counsel some of the students I was teaching chess. I said, oh, this is my dream school. No, they make it your dream school. It's seductive. All right. But unless you can write the check for it, don't go. Seriously. So if you can write the check, go. But if you have to do these things called student loans, that means don't go.
Yeah, I'm still paying mine. I graduated ages ago and everything like that. But just really quickly along those same lines, because I know that you follow, and I mentioned that earlier when you weren't here and everything, China and everything like that. And apparently we're having a change in view of China. What is China thinking about us? Because I know that you stay active on the Facebook and you go to these Chinese groups and everything like that. So what is our Chinese friends saying, and when are we going to get some more Chinese shows on the network? Because I know we had that young in California that was doing our China show.
It depends where in China. In other words, the thing is, you have China, everybody looks, it's like one monolith. It's like saying all the people in the United States think the same, right? The Democrats and Republicans all think the same because you're US people, right? And liberals, China's the same way. They do not.
I looked up Oxford, and Oxford seems to have realized that they can charge foreign students a ton.
That's correct. It's changed.
$13,000 a year if you're from England, $50,000 a year at least if you're from overseas. So you want to go to Germany. Public universities in Germany are generally tuition free for U.S. students, costing only about $400 per semester in admin fees. And of course, there's room and board, but that'll run you.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. There's quality education in Europe that is next to nothing. Now, right now, my grandkids are going to NC State, which is good because they got in-state tuition. But They should also look to do graduate school, maybe overseas, because also a lot of employers are looking for people that have international experience,
Well,
which is
apparently,
rare
you might want
because
to even
this
look
way
at
you don't have
going
to
to
deal
school
with the
in.
minded
You might
American.
want to look at going to school in China, because I just looked that up because I was curious. It says tuition for U.S. students in China is generally affordable, ranging from 2,000 to 10,000 per year for bachelor's program, with top tier universities often costing under $5,000 annually. So
And
public university tuition is lower, while private institutions or international programs can reach 35,000 to 40,000 annually. Costs vary, like you were saying, depending on where it is in China and everything like
yeah,
that.
where in China?
Universities
Plus,
like
there's another.
the King University are starting around $4,000 for their bachelor programs.
If you go to school, if you go to college overseas, that gives you access to. If you go in Europe, you get to go to a zillion different countries because they're. It's
Right.
like going to. It's like going from Tennessee to Georgia. You're going from Spain to Germany to
Right.
you get to
Oh
see
yeah,
the
you're part
world.
of the European. Like right now, I'm part of the European Union. So next week I'll be in Vienna, and I don't have to go through customs or passport control or anything. I just take the plane. I fly over to Vienna because it's part of the EU, which also has 432 million people are part of the European Union. That's a big number. Wait a minute, that's bigger than the United States.
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
and if you go overseas, my kid now
Amazing.
has friends throughout the world. If she
Yeah.
she does museum studies, she needs to travel for research, and like wherever she goes, there like she'll go to Amsterdam to look at an
Right.
object in a museum, and she can have lunch with people, her friends. Like she's got them all over.
Yeah, you open up the world and realize that most Americans don't have that type of world, and that's one reason that they're very narrow-minded. Some of my foreign friends have said, "Oh, you're a narrow-minded American," and you know what that means. Well, you grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and all you know is what goes in Omaha, Nebraska, and your life revolves around. Where I grew up is Hillsborough County, Florida, Tampa. And I'm one of the few people who left it. A lot of those people, they'll live, born, die within a 50-mile radius of where they were born. I mean, they just don't go anywhere.
Then a lot of
Nothing
people
wrong with
take
it, but
advantage of
certainly.
foreign trips and everything like that. Because I know that my neighbor upstairs, I think she's studying in one of the medicine fields. It might be physical therapy, but she's actually dog sitting because a friend of hers, I think, has got another week or two of visiting Japan. So she's actually in Japan. So she left the dog in my neighbor's care and everything like that. But Rick, you're gonna love the name of one of these scholarships out of China and everything like that. So apparently, because it's not just Mao Zedong, but there are other famous people as well. And apparently, maybe your daughter can get a Confucius Institute scholarship. So this is for Chinese language and culture students and everything like that. So there are scholarships that are available, including one named after Confucius. There's also the Chinese government scholarships and the university specific scholarships if they want to go study there and everything. Of course, there's application fees, which are like $100 to $110 United States and everything.
Well, China and these other countries are doing what we used to do, which is, China is roughly what, a fifth of the world's population, a sixth, but that leaves 5/6 of the rest of the world where you want to cherry pick the best and brightest. And we used to do that. Germany with free tuition for foreign students.
It's kind of hard to believe.
Germany is less than 1% of the world's population. That means Germany is like, come here, the best, smartest of the rest of the 99% of the world, come to Germany.
Yeah.
And which is
well, I mean, there's opportunities overseas, and people don't realize, but they've also the cost of flying has gone down because the airplanes are much better than they were 30 years ago. They go further, faster, and there's more of them. So it has driven down the cost of flying from one country to the next, or at least flying across the pond to Europe and around the world. And you're going to see that trend. So, if you have a choice to spend like $70,000 to go to University of Miami, which I love the U, don't get me wrong, or you can go to free in Germany, go to Germany. I'm serious. You don't want to get in student debt. Now, if your parents are worth 10 million or more, go wherever you want. You know, to me, the break off is 10 million or more. If you're 10 million or more, go wherever you want. If you're 10 million or less, you better look at the economics of education, because it's not.
So I asked AI. They said that the best countries overseas include Estonia, Switzerland, Germany, Ireland, and the Netherlands. And another thing all these countries have in common is it's really fun over there.
Yeah, that part is true. And also, if you look at the GDP per capita, Luxembourg and Ireland, two of the places you mentioned, have a higher GDP per capita than the US. In other words, the people who live in Luxembourg, and I'll add Liechtenstein to the list. Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Ireland, those people are richer than the people in the US. It's amazing. Part of it, because Ireland they were a poor country. They put a push on grabbing international corporations to move there. So by doing some weird things with their tax code, et cetera. So Ireland brought them in. Luxembourg followed, did the same thing, became a big financial center. And Liechtenstein has always been that way. So what happens is there's some very wealthy countries in Europe that people are just not aware of in the United States, because the U.S. is a very dummied down country, and I don't know if it's ever going to change. It just
well, I mean, to your point, we don't know a lot of the countries and cities in other places, because even as I'm looking at these universities, I know about Wuhan because of its impact on the pandemic and where people were saying the pandemic came from. And of course, I know where Peking is. And I had family members that visited China and some friends that did as well. But I can tell you where Bohai is, Bohai University and Qingtu University and Shenzhen University and Fudan. I can tell you where any of those places are.
Yeah, because we're really, we had a show called Understanding China. No, not Understanding. It was, we had a Chinese show on the network, but we lost our Chinese affiliate, Mark. But we have to go find another person who will do a show on China on the Pod TV network, because what happens is that we get very little information about China in the United States. I mean, let's face it, we're completely ignorant of that country, and ignorant not because it's bad, it's because our media is bad. They don't show that. By the way, the BBC does a show on Africa. So over here, I get to watch a lot about what goes on in Africa, but in the United States, forget it.
Well, there's even YouTube channels, because I follow some of them that are.
It's funny. What?
There's some YouTube channels that follow African news and everything. I try to follow them.
Yeah, but they have one that goes on like every day on BBC.
I know what you meant.
So if
I said ABC and CBS and NBC, they're not even on the channels over here. So what America beats their chest about their big three, they're the big zero in Spain and in Europe. Yeah, go on.
If you're a communications major and you can become fluent in Chinese, you can end up on TV fairly easily over there. That they love putting friendly foreign faces on Chinese media. Like 20 years ago, a friend of a friend became like the Oprah of China.
Oh, wow.
Well, remember, it's scheduled to be the world's largest economy in the next decade. So the U.S. will be moving to second place. And then by 2050, U.S. will go to third place, as China and India will be the world's largest economy. So U.S., you can jump up and down on MAGA all you want, make America great again. Look, your metrics are going south, buddy. Okay, and metrics are everything. And if your metrics continually go south, you're going to end up in, at best, third place. By the way, third place isn't bad, but it's just like our education system. We were number one. Now we're not even cracking the top 20.
Yeah, so, I mean, third place also run like the UK used to rule the world, and then after the world wars happened and they lost their position, they lost their colonies, and they no longer rule the world. the UK is still a great place to live. Spain,
Right.
new country, they used to dominate the world.
Yeah, in the
100 years
1600s,
ago.
right?
And so the US,
1640.
will become an also ran country.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I know David Walker wrote the book America 2040 Still a Superpower. Yes, it will be, but it'll be a third place superpower. The number one superpower in the world will be China. So if you're a young person, you're listening to this, and you want to know what you should learn, Mandarin. I agree, Rick. Mandarin and China, because it will take the number one place. And right now, I'm doing a lot of business in China. So, it's through our San Francisco connection. That's going to be some of the meetings I had last week or earlier this week. These people are doing very well. The top end, they're like the US. The top end does well, the bottom end suffers.
It looks like we're 34th in math, by the way, in education worldwide and everything like that, because I just looked it up. And even though we're ranking high in global education attainment and everything like that, sometimes ranked first for overall education. But when you break it down to category, it looks like we're 30. This is from 2022, so it might even be fallen further. But in 2022, we were 34th in math and 16th in science.
34th in math.
34th in math.
That doesn't sound very good, Mark. And what we're in science, we're in the 16th.
16th. Yeah, China was number one looks like China was number one in math. Singapore beat us. Hong Kong beat us. Estonia, Canada beat us. Canada's looks like sixth place. Finland beat us. Ireland beat us. Korea beat us. Poland beat us. New Zealand beat us. Yeah, there's a bunch of.
Is that the PISA scores, the performance index of student assessment? PISA. Yeah, and see, the thing is, I know we broadcast all over the world, but I think, Rick, if we were to ask 100 Americans what's a PISA score, you'd be lucky to have one of them know what it is.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Oh, really? It's the performance index of student assessments. It's used
the assessment from Common Core, because that's the other company that I work for.
Yeah, it's basically to determine the metrics of math, science, reading, all over the world. In other words, where do you perform at? And so what Mark was reading is that the U.S. 34th in math.
Yeah,
that's not good. 16th in science, but they're actually, I think our reading scores are pretty good though. What's the reading score? It should be in there also. Reading.
Yeah, it has.
The trouble, reading in general, people's overall around the world reading skills have declined. Because the internet.
Reading, we're in sixth place, to answer your question.
Sixth place, that's what I thought. Reading, we're at sixth place. So,
but people overall throughout the world have had their reading abilities decayed because we're on our phones all the time. And when we have a question, if you used to want to find something out, you had to pick up a book and maybe read a chapter and hope that the answer was there. Now, it takes 10 seconds to type something into Google. And
you're kind of mentally.
Do we even have what I used to sell for a hot minute when I was in Marquette? I think I sold them for literally a hot minute. I tried to sell a vacuum cleaner, but I think I sold some encyclopedias, if I remember correctly. Do we even have encyclopedias in people's houses anymore?
They've all been pulped.
I think they've all been pulped. Yeah, your Encyclopedia Britannica is dead. And all the encyclopedias. The internet has basically taken over information. And I hate to say it, I do use AI almost every day because I can pull things a lot faster using AI and get close to accurate. On information I don't need 100% accuracy on.
Just while we've been talking, I've asked AI 7 or 8 questions based on our discussion.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, and the thing is, it is a tool, and it's a good tool. And I don't know how much it's going to replace legal and tax work. I use it for tax work because sometimes are things like, since I'm overseas, what forms do I have to fill out? In other words, because if you're a citizen of the United States, resident of another country, all your tax filings are different. And AI was pretty good putting up the forms I need to fill out in the United States and Spain. I hate to say it, pretty impressed. I'm wondering, I'm not sure if it's going to replace the humans, but a lot of humans are going to have to use AI if you want to keep up with whatever you're doing, because the research is a lot better, a lot faster using AI, recognizing it's not 100% accurate. because I've also caught it quite a few times. I'm going, nope, this is not right. Nope, this is not right. They do make mistakes, but the thing is, they'll put you in the ballpark faster than you would if you tried to go through the books yourself. So,
well, I mean,
I
that's
see
part of
AI
the
being
problem that and I know we've talked about this before, but teachers are not paid enough. And that's why apparently even last year, there was a report that 1 out of 6 teachers had to work a second job. They couldn't just make their only job of being a teacher. They had to work a second job. And we know that teaching is a job that can take anywhere. I mean, you're in the school for 8 hours and then you probably got to have about another 4 hours of prep time. So teaching is supposed to be like about a 12-hour a day job, or 10 to 12 hour a day job, and everything like that. But I'm thinking that if these folks are working a second job, they might be working 16, 18 hours a day and everything like that. So
Well, plus you have summers, though.
you do have summers.
But yeah,
Yeah,
but
you
it's been
have
that way
summers.
for a long time.
Teaching has never been a great profession. So the thing is, if you're looking to make money, that's probably not the way to go. It's not a money making profession. I mean, it's almost like social work. So, and everybody doesn't think they're getting paid enough. Unfortunately,
but it used to be a weird thing to to walk into a store called Fashion Bar and have Mr. Sheffield, your history teacher, help you pick out a pair of pants.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a little embarrassing for everybody.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, it's not a place where you can actually make a lot of money. When I was teaching at University of Denver, after I think I had my law degree, I'll never forget what they were paying me as a instructor, $5.50 an hour. Okay. It also depends where you're teaching. At Northeastern, where I was at the graduate tax, I was getting $2,000 an hour. Now they're both private schools. One I'm lead faculty, the other one I'm not. One is an adjunct position with a very fast program. The other one was not just a traditional law program. So it's not just teaching, it's where are you teaching and what are you teaching makes a difference. One of the problems we have in the educational system is that we're teaching the wrong things. We're teaching people 1,800 skill sets in a lot of places. And then in some places, we are teaching them things that will be useful in the next couple decades. So it's just like people go, oh, I'm going to move to Spain. It's not Spain. It's where in Spain. Oh, Barcelona. It's not Barcelona. Where in Barcelona? It's all different. So you have to really break these metrics down when it comes to education. It's like, oh, US, they all think the same. China, they all think the same. No, they don't. And
there's a lot of things all and everything like that. So definitely don't think the same and everything like that. No doubt about that. I do have a question for you.
I've got a couple quick stories before we go.
Get ready to wrap up and everything along those lines. But if RFK calls us and says he wants a show on Pod TV, are we going to let him on, or are we going to be like, heck no?
Oh, absolutely. The thing is, we believe in the First Amendment here. I certainly would have RFK on. I'd have him talk to Patmos. And I would ask him the question I always know: what is an environmental lawyer doing head of Health and Human Resources? Real simple question. Talk to me. Tell me why you think you're qualified. Seriously, because I have some serious reservations about his qualification and his medical expertise, given his background. I have no problem. Bring him on, Mark. Tell me he can come on. Okay.
Two other things before we go, real quick. One is Trump and the Pope are sniping at each other.
Oh, totally.
And it for the first time, we've got an American Pope who's pretty plain spoken. So it's not like a Pope fighting with Trump in a second language. Another thing is Iran is taunting Trump with memes, and they put up a meme of Jesus throwing Trump into hell because 2 nights ago, Trump put up some AI slop showing himself as Jesus healing a sick man. And now Iran is coming back saying you're not Jesus and you're going to hell.
And the Iranians are backing the Pope.
The Iranians are definitely backing the Pope and everything along those lines and everything like that. I don't know if you heard the latest joke. I actually think I heard it on Stephen Colbert, and I probably messed it up. But it was they were looking at Donald, and Donald had to go into heaven and everything like that. He was down in hell and he could go to heaven, but he had to replace somebody. So he went, and first he went down there and he saw Nixon, and Nixon was over there, like having to kid a lot of bricks and doing that all day long and everything like that. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that and everything like that. So then he saw Obama, and Obama was doing something other activity that he didn't want to do either. And I forgot what that activity was. But then he saw the third choice, and he was like, it was Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton was getting serviced by Monica Lewinsky and everything like that, because whoever he was going to replace somebody and everything like that. That was the nature of the joke and everything like that. So he's going to let them go up to heaven or go up into the middle ground and everything like that. So Bill, he saw what Bill was getting serviced like on a regular basis every day, 5 or 6 times a day and everything like that. And he's like, I can do that. And then he said, Monica, you're up. So Monica got to go up. So that meant that Bill that Trump had to do that to Bill for the rest of his life and everything like that.
Okay.
Cool. But on that note, we're getting ready to get on out of here and all along those lines and everything like that. But definitely, I will see you not later today because we don't have world politics, but I will have the online dinner party later on. And then, of course, we've got Weed Wednesday coming up as well. And we've got a number of other things coming up on the network, including Follow the Brand. And we'll be back here with World Edition on Thursday.
I'll see you then. Thank you.
No problem.